Hi guys, my name is Tom Antos, and in today's tutorial I want to show you how I do color correction, or more specifically how I did color correction in my last film, United We Stand. Here's a few of the shots from the film. And now the software I'm going to be using is Adobe Premiere and the Colorista plugin, but you don't have to use that plugin. You can just use the built-in three-way color corrector. But there's some advantages to using the plugin. Just basically works faster, stuff like that. Now, if you're using Final Cut Pro, then I would say don't use it. Especially the last version of Final Cut Pro is just for any kind of professional work. It's just really bad. So here's how this sequence looks without any color correction. And now, as you'll notice, there's some of the shots really differ between each other, and that's because some of the shots were shot on the Canon 7D, some were shot on the Canon 5D camera, some were shot on the Red Epic, like the slow motion shots here. And then there was even like this shot up here is actually shot on the GoPro Hero 3. So, obviously you have different looking footage. Now the goal is obviously to first come up with the right look for the film, and then afterwards to match the footage from all the different cameras. So we'll start off on this shot. I'm going to use, like I said, Colorista. So we'll go here to Video Effects, and then we'll go Magic Bullet Colorista, and I'm using version 2. Drag and drop it onto this shot. Let me zoom in here. And here's how Colorista looks. So you have the primary options for the exposure, density, all that stuff. And I'm going to pretty much leave those all right now untouched. And then you have the secondary. And you have the secondary three-way color corrector. So that's really the main tool that we're going to be working with. So what kind of look I want for this? Well, I wanted to feel, it's winter. So even though when we shot it, it was super cold. When you look at this footage, you might not, maybe you don't get the sense of that it's, really that cold out there. So right away, I know what I want to do is I want to keep it very like cool looking colors. So kind of bluish, kind of greenish kind of tones. And also it's a war flick. It's kind of supposed to be, dark, a little bit maybe depressing, kind of this because of the scenery and the scenario. So I want to basically like desaturate it and just make it very, not black and white, but so that it still looks like a color film, but it just looks like it's everything just looks kind of depressing, kind of deprived of color. So the first thing I'll do probably is I'll go to primary saturate, actually tools, and I'll go to the primary saturation, and I'll just desaturate the shot. I shot it with like this kind of custom preset I have on my camera, which automatically kind of makes the image less contrasted and has sort of less saturated. But even further, like if you see up here on his shoulder here where it says Special Forces and the US flag, there's still a lot of color there. So I'm just gonna desaturate it maybe by 20. Yeah, maybe right now I'll put it to 20. Somewhere there. So you see right away the difference. Now in the secondary three-way color corrector, I'm gonna start kind of giving us the look. So the shadowy areas, for sure I want that to be kind of bluish. So I'll put that down, and you can just drag and drop it and basically towards any part of the image that you want. So for example, if I pull the shadows, let's see, towards the reds here, you see right away it takes all those dark areas and makes them red. So I want to kind of push it towards the blues here. Then also the midtones, which is like the areas like the trees and his uniform here. That maybe, well, I'll give it maybe a little bit of warmth, so not the whole image is completely blue. So maybe pull it a little bit here, but not really completely red, kind of between red and yellow, kind of sort of a brownish almost color. So push it there just to sort of counter what we did with the shadows. Because if I take this off, you'll notice, like, you know, basically the whole image now turns kind of bluish. Whereas if I counter it now, it's gonna add a little bit of warmth just in those areas. And then the highlights too, I'm gonna make them a little bit cooler looking. So especially because I want those white areas there where the sky is visible to just sort of look, you know, like, again, cold. So if I make the sky very warm looking, like, see, like here, let's say very yellowish, it just gives you a different feel for the scene. So I want to do the opposite, and not too much, but just kind of drag it, just so there's a small hint there in the sky of this kind of a cold, you know, winter weather. So we do this. Another thing I might do is actually here with the shadows, because it just feels overall too kind of, you know, just bluish and monotone to me, is kind of offset that blue and mix it a little bit with some green, and that's just in the shadows. So again, I'll pull it even further. You can see how that affects it, and that's already pretty damn close to, you know, how I want it to be. So now the last thing I'll do still is that, you know, because when you look at it, like, this is what we started with, and this is what we have in the final image. It's, you know, obviously we've darkened the whole image, you know, and made it, you know, a lot cooler looking, but I still feel, and even though, you know, we desaturated it originally, I still feel like after the color correction, the blues, you know, are still too saturated. It's like I want it to be blue, but I don't want it to be overly saturated. So I'll basically do secondary saturation here, and I'll drag it down, and maybe like 50%. And this sort of gives you the sense, like, you can still see it has a hint of blue there, but it almost looks, you know, borderlines on looking black and white. So this is the original we started with, and this is now, you could say, our final, or close to final. And now another thing, you know, I'm thinking of doing here, just when looking at this shot, is maybe making it a little bit more contrasty. And now if you're doing this and just using the standard 3-way color corrector, then you would go here to video effects, and then color correction, and you take brightness and contrast, and you can just increase the contrast that way. What I prefer to do is to do it right in Colorista. So that's, again, another advantage of using Colorista. You have this option called pop. What pop does is that it's sort of like you know, basically when you increase this amount, it's sort of like increasing contrast, but with a slight difference. It basically only works on the sort of already defined and sharp edges. It doesn't do it for the whole, you know, all the pixels in your image. So it still kind of retains sort of the soft quality while making it seem like the edges are just more contrasty. And I prefer that, you know, versus, you know, just making the whole image contrasty, because if you know, add contrast to the whole image up here, then especially that sky over there, it's just gonna become, you know, completely white, blown out. So that's one advantage of using you know, this tool. And if you put in a negative value, so here, for example, if I put it up, you'll just see, you know, if I put it like all the way to 100%, you see how it sharpens just those edges, makes the image really seem, you know, like super contrasty, but still retaining those same kind of color values there in the highlights and in the shadows too. Whereas if you put it in the opposite direction, then what you're gonna get is the exact same opposite. So meaning all those defined edges are gonna be softened now. So, you know, let me drag it to -100. So that might be, you know, obviously you probably never, you know, I've never at least used it all the way to negative or positive 100. But let's say if you use it like, you know, -15, it might be a cool kind of look if you're doing, I don't know, maybe a love story or something, you know, maybe like kind of a fantasy film where you want everything to kind of look a little dreamy. So for this film, I think I'll you know, just sort of bump it up, maybe, I don't know, maybe 15, somewhere around there. And now, okay, so let's look at it again. We'll turn off the Colorista. This is what we started with, and here's our image, our final image right now that we have. Again, without it, and this is with it. Let me try to make this a bit bigger here too. What I'm thinking is, though, the image still feels like, especially the sky there, and that's, you know, that's sort of one thing, you know, when you're shooting with this kind of harsh extreme weather, is that you know, in the forest here where we're filming was a lot darker than it was outside over there where you see the sky. So sky is really blown out, and it still feels to me like like this, it looks too bright, like you know, almost sunny kind of thing. So what I would say is that I want to go to my Colorista and to the primary 3D color corrector, and here's where, you know, it's good to have sort of like this first step color correction, and this is, you know, the secondary I treat as my second and final sort of color correction. The cool thing about this is that then I can go into this image and, let's say, you know, without really affecting our whole color correction, but just affecting those highlights there, I just want to make them darker. So I can just grab this here. Here on the side you have these tabs that you can pull, and they basically represent the value from you know, all the way, you know, to you know, black to all the way to you know, pitch, you know, basically white brightness, and you can adjust it, you know, the brightness or the value of those pixels. So I want to take the highlights and I want to just drag them down, make them a bit darker. So you'll see that more I drag it down, the more it affects just those, you know, white pixels there, and it just gives you again this sort of a feeling of this kind of a cooler and sort of a dark, depressing day. Now, next thing is, because of the skin tone of our actor here, is very hard to see his face, so I might want to counter it, and also the gun here is very dark, so I might want to counter it with by taking the midtones and adding a bit more of the value there. So take the midtones and push it up a little bit more, so now we can see our actor more. And now again, I'll turn off the whole effect. This is how it looked before, and this is how the final thing looks. So, you know, I might want to play around with it a bit more. I'm thinking I'll take the midtones maybe and brighten it up a bit. And now in our final color correction here too, in the secondary 3D color corrector, I'm gonna take the value also and bring it down, just so that we sort of get this nice dark sort of, you know, like really pitch black kind of areas there in the gun and stuff, so that the image basically just doesn't look so washed out. And I think there, you know, I'm pretty happy with it. Maybe I'll bring back some of the blue color into the shot by, again, decreasing the final desaturation. Maybe put it at around 32, somewhere there. And those are like those tiny little adjustments that, you know, as you're color correcting, you're gonna have to do. And again, yeah, this is just what we started with, and here's our final image. Okay, so that's it for part 1. If you want to see part 2, where I'm going to color correct the other shots and sort of show you how I match the different cameras, then please go to my website, tomantosfilms.com. I'll have the video posted there, along with some other information. Thanks.